Hi there, Emmeline here, and this is day five of my 40-day challenge to just record a video every day, sharing my heart, sharing what's going on in my life, and in a way that feels good and authentic, just authentic expression. Oh man, what a roller coaster. I don't even remember what I talked about yesterday, but I know that I've talked about this cleanse, this detox that my partner and I are on, and we've been, this is like the fourth week we've been on it, and we're like basically moving into being fully raw vegan. And this past week, like man, what I realized yesterday, was basically my spleen has really been hurting. And I'd looked it up and saw like, oh, that's this place under my left rib cage where it's been hurting. That's where your spleen is, and so I knew that. And then I was on a call with a coach in a program that I'm in, and she was asking me what I wanted to work on, and I was wanting to work on some of just like the emotional stuff that I was going through yesterday. But I told her about this cleanse, and she mentioned, she was like, "Oh, it actually sounds like your spleen is really stressed." And I was like, "Mir? What?" Because the day before I had looked up what organ was here where this was hurting, and it was my spleen. And so when she said that, I was like, say more. But yeah, I mean, she talked about it, and then I talked to the person that's running this detox that I'm doing about it, and yeah, apparently it's pretty common when you start eating like all raw foods and you're having a lot of detox happening. It can just really overwhelm your spleen, because there's so much coming out. So working with that, but yeah, there's just like a lot of fatigue. And it's really interesting because it's like, it's like my spleen and probably my liver, and my body's just kind of being overwhelmed right now by this, cleanse that I'm doing and some of the release that's happening. But like, I feel that, like, emotionally, I feel so overwhelmed. And it's just so interesting to me to just observe that and like observe how overwhelmed I'm feeling. Which, part of it is because we have this launch coming up next week, right? And that's, that there's a lot that we have to do for that. But honestly, I'm not getting that much done for it. And I think like that's part of where the overwhelm is coming from also, is that there's so much that I need to get done that I'm not getting done. But it's like my body is just really just asking me to take care of it right now. And so I'm trying to honor that as much as I can, and still do the things that I need to do so that this can be successful, right? It's like finding the balance, not killing myself, trying to get all of this stuff done, but doing as much as I can so that this can be successful, and then also honoring my body and resting as much as possible. And I've been doing a lot more like gentle movement, the qigong, meditation, and it's actually fun because I started this thing today. There is this woman that is a musician, that her name's Guy Rock, and she's from Sweden, and we follow her on Instagram. We love her music. It's very funky, very fun. And she is just this beautiful soul that has, beautiful connections with the land and with the plants, and, just really works deeply with, a lot of different plants, and not, she does work with psychedelic plants, but not just psychedelic plants. She just works a lot with plants, and with the wisdom and the energies of different plant beings, which is beautiful, absolutely beautiful, so needed. And she posted something on Instagram a couple of days ago that was basically an invitation to spend 4 weeks communing with a particular nature being of your choice, and have it be like a creative container, like a creative collaboration between you and your nature being of choice. And it could be like a rock or a tree or a river or a lake or an element. It could be like, any energy, right? Any being. Recognizing that all beings on earth, whether we consider it to be living or not, like a lot of people would consider a rock not to be living, right? But that it does have an energy, and it is like actually an energetic being. And basically like 4 weeks to like sit with this being and create with it, like do some sort of creative activity. And so I was like, fuck yeah, that sounds awesome. I want to do that. And so this morning, other fun fact, I've been meditating out here underneath these beautiful trees. Very nice. However, I have been getting fucking eviscerated by whatever little, midges, tiny little no-see-ums that live in the ground here. They've been like, and because I come out like covered head to toe because it's cold, right? Especially in the morning. It's freaking cold out here. And so I'm come out like all bundled up, but I come out here, put a yoga mat down on the ground and sit on it. And then 12 hours later, I have tons of bug bites. And they're not like small bug bites. They're these huge welts that are super, super, super itchy. And so basically, I have decided, and I don't know if it's this cleanse that's making me like extra delicious, because I've never gotten eaten this bad by the bugs out here. I've gotten bug bites before, but not like this. And like, this is so bad, I can't keep coming out here and meditating out here. Like, I literally am getting run out of this place, at least as far as meditating goes. But I was actually going to commune with this tree right here, my beautiful little oak tree. But that oak tree exists down here, and this is a no-go zone for me for sitting on the ground and meditating. So I sat up on our deck and meditated with, I don't know if you can see that or not. Let's see. That redwood right there in the middle of the screen that goes up the house. That redwood actually is up against the deck. And so I could sit up on the deck and then like connect with that tree and meditate. And it was really cool this morning because I was sitting there and I was connecting with that tree and meditating, and it very clearly told me, you need to go do this 4-week practice. You need to go do this with the water, with the river. And so, I was like, okay, got it. And it was just like, it was a very clear message. And I completely understand. So this afternoon, I went and sat with Fall Creek here, which is near us. A place that I go down to a lot anyway. And so I went down there and sat with the river. And I completely understand. And it's so funny that, that was the message that I got, because one of the things that the spleen does is it's really related to cleaning the blood. And especially in traditional Chinese medicine, it's like, if your, pancreas is really backed up, there's stagnation in the blood, or if there's a lot of stagnation in the blood, then it can, cause issues with your pancreas and, all this kind of stuff. And so it's just like really, you can look at it in a very physiological way, in a traditional Chinese medicine way, in an energetic way, whatever, right? But there is like this aspect of what's going on in my body right now is kind of like an overload of toxins, and kind of like a backup of the rivers that flow through the body, right? The blood, the waters. And so it was, I think, really, really fitting that my beautiful friend, the tree, told me that I needed to go sit with the waters and meditate with the waters. And so I went and I did that today. And, I was talking to, I don't know, maybe one of the past 4 days, about just like having so much fire in me, and like really not feeling comfortable expressing it in most situations, like the like full expression of it. And I think one thing that I saw really clearly in the meditation that I did with the water today was like just how much, the opposite of fire, water, is a part of my being. and a part of my soul and a part of like how I experience life. And I would actually say that how I experience life is actually a lot more like water than anything else. And, I can say with a lot of certainty that in a lot of ways, water is probably the element that I have like the most conflictive of a relationship with. Like, I've never felt comfortable in large bodies of water. I don't like getting wet, like, I don't know, it's not like I have a super good relationship with water, as it exists in the natural world. I know the benefit of it. It's beautiful. I honor it. I respect it. But there's like a little bit of something there energetically, like a little bit of conflict somewhere. And so I think it's going to be really powerful these next 4 weeks to sit with the waters and learn from them. And we'll see what kind of what creative wants to come through that. But it was really interesting because, one of the reasons that I actually started doing this 40-day challenge is because so much of the way that I experience the world, it just feels like it's so different than what other people experience. And, especially after I started sitting with plant medicine and having these more kind of like soul level experiences, if you will. A lot of people, like the way that they experience reality, the way that they experience the universe, when they're sitting with medicine, or, after they kind of like awaken, right? And you don't really need to sit with medicine anymore to have these experiences. But like, you're really connected to all these kind of multidimensional spaces and places and aspects of yourself. And a lot of people experience that as separate, like people will channel Mother Mary or Mary Magdalene or Isis or Kuan Yin or Saint Germain or Jesus or Thoth, or all of these different beings, different entities, right? Different energies. And people talk about all these different what we call alien races, right? Or just other dimensions, like the Arcturians and the Pleiadians and the Lyrans and the Syrians, and so on and so forth. If you know, right? But for me, it's like I recognize that these beings exist, and I recognize that that the stuff that people talk about is real, and I know that I carry it within myself, and I can feel it, but it doesn't feel separate from me. It doesn't feel like a separate being. It doesn't feel like Mary Magdalene. That doesn't feel like an energy that's separate from me. It simply feels like an energy that is a part of me. It feels like something that is a part of what people would call my soul. And even the experience of having a soul, like I think I experience that differently than other people experience it too. Because I experience myself, like even on what people would call the soul level, as like a multitude of, like a compilation of all of these different energies that people talk about as being like singular beings or singular energies. I experience myself to be like pieces of all of those beings, pieces of all of those energies. And that's just what I am. Like that's what it feels like. And I'm not separate from any of those things. And it's like some of those things could be exchanged, right? I think there's some that feel like they're more like on the outer edges that might come and go, and then there's some that feel more like core to who I am, at least in this lifetime, in this experience. And so, yeah, I don't know. It's just like a very, very different experience than what most people talk about. Yeah, and it was just struck me as I was meditating in the water today that that's like the experience of water, actually. You know, you can have a river that runs for miles and miles and miles and miles until it meets the ocean. And it's not that one molecule of water experiences as itself as different, right? And all of these different molecules that make up water, they're constantly like interchanging with each other. And the water has a structure to it. You know, water in nature, it has a structure to it. But the molecules, right? They're constantly moving and changing and moving and changing and moving and changing. And you know, the way that water is, right, facilitates that. There's not this like solid structure that keeps, you know, all the atoms and all the molecules kind of like, you know, in place. I mean, even in solid structures, there's always vibration. There's always exchange of, you know, atoms and molecules, but not like in water, right? In water, it's just like happening all of the time. And yeah, I mean, and the river, it's like it's one river, and then it meets the ocean and it becomes part of the ocean, right? And there's no separation. I guess that's the thing. There's no separation. And yeah, that's just, I mean, realistically, like that's how I experience reality, is that there's no separation. And I feel like a lot of my path has been learning how to operate in a grounded way in this reality, where not everything operates as water, basically. Or not everything operates as one. Because, you know, on a soul level, on a higher level, it's just really easy for me to connect to that. You know, people spend so much time meditating, trying to connect to oneness and like that frequency of being fully connected to everything and everything being you and you being everything. And it's very easy for me to connect to. I think what's been more challenging for me is learning how to navigate and how to set boundaries in this reality. And that's the purpose, right? That's like one of the purposes anyway of this whole experience, is a different kind of experience than that, you know, more higher level cosmic soul experience, I guess. So yeah, it's interesting. It was a productive meditation with the river today. I'm very interested to see what comes of that over the next 4 weeks as I continue to go and sit with her and meditate and see what wants to come through. And hopefully also it will help just energetically help the flow of my body, help everything that is being released from my cells and being released from my body right now to just flow, so that I don't get so overwhelmed by it, because definitely there's a little bit of overwhelm happening right now and it is not very fun. But, you know, such is life. I have a lot of years of stuff that I did not deal with, that I didn't know how to deal with, that I wasn't even aware of, built up in my body. And I was really hard on my body for a lot of years. I really, really disrespected my body for a lot of years. Really pushed in ways that it was just not, it was not good. It was not in right relationship. And so, you know, that has to be released. It has to be released. It has to be felt. It has to have space held for it so that it can move on and we can start new now. We can start from a new place. So that's the process. And then, just keep everything else in my life going at the same time. I don't know. I think you can. I think that, there is a time and a place to go and isolate and stop everything you're doing and just focus on healing your body. But I don't think that I need to do that. I mean, we'll see. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm sure if I'm wrong, I'm going to be shown that. But I don't feel that. I don't feel that I need to do that. I just feel that I have to learn to balance. I have to learn to balance everything that I want to do and feel like I need to do with taking care of my body. And I think that's my lesson, is just learn how to balance. You don't have to stop everything. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, but just learn how to balance and let that be enough. So I'm learning. I think that's all I have for today. I hope you're all doing wonderful, and I will see you tomorrow.